Today is July 21st, 2006. I am Jessica Clark. It is a pleasure to conduct this interview for the Dakota Memories Oral History Project in Saskatoon, Saskatchewan. To start with, can you please state your name?
Ray Boechler.
Okay. And Ray, where were you born?
I was born in North Dakota, Carlsruhe, North Dakota,
Really?
on a farm out of, yeah.
How long were you out there in North Dakota?
Oh, I was just a baby when Mom and Dad came to Canada. My dad was going to start farming here, but he came up with his livestock and his machinery. And he had a chance to buy into a hardware store when he got here, so he went into the hardware business instead of farming. So I grew up in the store business. I've been a merchant all my life.
Where did they move when they came up here?
Pardon?
Where did they come to when they...
At Allen.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah, just about 35 miles from here.
Is the hardware business still
It
around?
was, no, it expanded into a good general store, and it was there for 73 years. It was in the family, but it's closed out now. Just couldn't compete with the big cities, you know.
Is the building still around that
The
you're...
building is still there.
Where's that located?
Pardon?
Where is it located in Allen?
Oh, right in the main intersection of the village, of just a small town village.
Okay.
Yeah.
When were you born?
1925, November 1.
And do you know any stories about your birth? Do you know if like a midwife was present?
Not really, except that my sister died in the same house the night I was born. She was, yeah, one of the twin girls. There was twin sisters in our family, and she died on the night I was born in the farmhouse.
How did she die?
I think she had pneumonia. I asked my mother lots of times, what the heck do they know? She was sick and died. There was a doctor there because I guess there was either he was there because Mom was going to have a baby or because the Sister Margaret was very sick. I don't know, but the doctor was there in attendance when she died and when I was born.
How old was she?
She was 9 years old, and her twin sister had died when she was 4. But I think one of them had died of diphtheria. I think there was a diphtheria epidemic at the time in North Dakota.
What year was it that your 4-year-old sister died?
The youngest one? Mm-hmm. Well, she was 4 and she was born. Margaret was 9 in 1925. So what the heck, 5 years? About 1919 probably.
Oh yeah, there was an epidemic at that time.
Is that right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay. Can you tell me what some of your earliest childhood memories, some of the first things you remember?
Well, they were nothing exciting, nothing worth remembering, really. We were talking about that yesterday, how far back we can remember. I remember 1933, some of the dust storms we had here. And I was, 33? I was about, born in 25, 33. I was about 8, 9 years old. But some of the hot, dry, dusty storms we had at that time. Farming was terrible. It was really. There was no crops. There was nothing. There wasn't even feed for the livestock. But I wasn't really involved in that because my dad wasn't a farmer, but he was involved in the farming community. And we were dealing with farm people all our lives. And we depended on the farms. That's what it boils down to. Other than that, I don't. Things were tough, until the war broke out in 1939, and things started to. The economy kind of boosted a bit. There was more employment, and the crops started getting better. And it's I don't know. To me, it's kind of ironic that you need a war to boost the economy of a country, But we see that in a lot of cases. We do that. But that's the way it is. Oh, I know my mother was deaf. She was stone deaf, as long as in fact, she lost her hearing, I think, just before I was born. Because, did you meet my brother Ralph?
Mm-mm.
Well, he was the last one of our family that my mother could hear, eh? After he was born, when he was just a year and a half old when I was born, eh? But she was deaf by the time I was born, so she never ever heard me cry or heard my voice or anything. Eh? And I remember it was kind of tough, you know, and she had 3 or 4 kids after that yet.
How did you communicate with your mother?
Talk German to her. You had to look directly at her, and she could read our lips, see? But it had to be in German because she lost her hearing before she learned English. See? Well, as far as kids go, I don't remember any problems with hearing with my mother. Eh? The only thing is when the last couple of kids were born, Andrew and Isabel, she always kept telling us, if you hear the baby cry, come and get me. Eh? No, because she couldn't hear the baby cry or anything in the other room or whatever. Eh?
How many kids were in your family?
There were 7 of us grew up. The two girls had died in North Dakota yet. Eh?
Can you take me through the oldest to the youngest, the names?
The oldest was my brother Nick. He died in 73. He was living in Vancouver at the time when he died. Eh? And then my next sister, well, then the twins were born, eh? And they both died. My next sister, she's still living. She, I think, is about 85, 86 now, maybe 87. She's getting pretty old, but I saw her last Sunday. We had a 50th wedding anniversary last Sunday, my wife and I. Eh? We had kind of a big family gathering and a lot of friends and relatives. And she was there, and she's getting kind of old and feeble too, but still gets around yet. Eh? And then there's my brother Ralph. He's got MS, and he's not in very good shape. And there's my brother Philip. He just about a year and a half younger than I am. And about a week ago, 10 days ago, he had an operation on cancer of the bladder. Eh? Yeah, he's up and around, and you never think there's anything wrong with him. I think he's indestructible, really, that guy. Yeah, and then there was my youngest brother, Andrew. He died of MS. Well, he had MS. He eventually died as a result of it. When did he die? I can't even remember. It's all in the family Bible. And my youngest sister, Isabel, she lives on a farm about 20 miles east of here. Eh? And that's our family.
What was it like growing up with that many brothers and sisters?
Oh, no problem. Well, it was, what the heck? We were not too bad off. My dad was fairly well off. You know, we had enough to eat, especially during the dirty 30s. There was a lot of people that, I know some of the farm kids used to come to school with no lunch. There was nothing to eat in the house, eh? And even some of the kids who lived in the village were told, don't bother coming home at noon because we've got nothing to eat, eh? And that's how tough it was in some of those. And I know some of my friends came to school with homemade shoes, eh? The old man made them out of a cowhide or something, eh? You couldn't buy anything. You had no money. Yeah, and my dad, I've still got some of the bills. He fed half the municipality out of the store. We were in the grocery business by then too. We had a general store. Charge everything to the farmer. Hell, it still isn't paid, eh? I still got a box of old bills, eh, from way back in the 30s and the late 20s, eh? But that's all right. That's all in the past. Survived it all.
You mentioned the dust storms. Can you describe what a dust storm looked like?
A dust storm. Well, there was just, do you know what Russian thistles are?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Tumbleweeds, I think a lot of people call them. That's the only damn thing that grew in the 30s, eh? And they would just blow across the country to come to a fence and it'd pile up 10, 12 feet high of Russian thistle piled up and everything. In fact, a lot of the livestock, that's all they lived on was The damn Russian thistle, eh? It was, other than that, what the heck, there was dust storms. There was, where there was any loose dirt or gravel or sand or anything, it just blew away. It was moving forever, eh? It was dusty. Hot, dry, and dusty, eh?
Did it make it hard to breathe?
Oh, absolutely it was, yep. And a lot of, I know, like I said, I remember 1933 in the village, there was gravel on the streets. There weren't paved streets, eh? You couldn't walk across the street unless you wore goggles because the sand and gravel would just blast you in the face. Plug up your eyes if you didn't wear goggles or something, eh? It was terrible. But it's the way it was, and we survived it.
Did it blow into the house?
Oh, absolutely, it was dusty. It was always dusty in the house, yeah. Oh, sure, that was. And that was the day before vacuum cleaners, you know. There was always just Mom and the older sister walking around dusting everything. It was the way it was.
Can you tell me a little bit about what winter months were like back then?
The which?
Winter months.
The winter months. Cold, lots of snow. Well, it's... I remember some of those blizzards we used to have 2 or 3 days at a time. You know, it was just continuously. You couldn't see across the street for 2 or 3 days, eh? But you don't see storms like that anymore. You don't. The weather has changed quite a bit. You don't get those 3-day storms. We don't get 3-4 day rains anymore either in the summertime like we used to. But the winters were cold and the houses were not that warm, eh? What the heck? We just coal and wood and stoves. Space heaters. There was no furnaces in most places, eh? You shoveled coal and you shoveled snow and you chopped wood and you kept the house warm. Yeah, it was... Yeah, you talk to the kids today, talk to my kids about that. They don't want to believe that things were that tough. Well, maybe I'm exaggerating. No, I'm not exaggerating. I just remember too vividly some of those things, eh? That you try to explain that to the kids, it's hard to. In fact, like I said, we were not even that bad off. A lot of our neighbors, a lot of our friends and the farmers were worse off than we were. Like I said, my dad fed half of the municipality of farmers, you know. He never did collect for it. They come to the store, they need something to eat, okay, give them something. And my mother used to say, you feed everybody else, but when I need something at home, you say we can't afford it. But that was just, wasn't really that bad, eh?
The summer months, besides being really dry and hot, did you ever see like a tornado or severe windstorms?
Some severe windstorms. Well, we call them cyclones. Eh? They were just some severe windstorms that used to wreck buildings, blow them away, and nothing that would wreck a home or anything like that. But that's where a lot of our dust storms originated, eh? From a strong wind, something that would blow for days, eh? And other than that, there was, well, you can't talk about rain or hailstorms in the 30s. I don't ever remember it raining, for heaven's sake. Eh? But there was always a bit of snow in wintertime, even in the dirty 30s. But after that, in the 40s and 50s, there was snow. I remember some snowstorms where the snowbanks in the farmer's yard were higher than the telephone poles, eh? The farmer would drive over he had a sleigh trail over the telephone wires. They were all buried, and that's straight goods. I've got some pictures on the calendar of some of the storms and some of the conditions that. But these are all things in the past. We don't get anything that severe anymore. We don't get a 3-day blizzard. We don't get a 3-day rain. We don't. But I tell you what there is. There's more tornadoes going through Canada now than there was. Maybe I didn't hear about them, but every once in a while, every year, there's 1 or 2 of our cities get hit fairly hard with a tornado that does a lot of damage. But Not like in the States there, some of them are really devastating, really do a lot of damage and kill a lot of people, eh? But the weather's moderated. It's changing. The winters aren't as severe.
When you were growing up,
Pardon?
When you were growing up, what was your favorite time of year?
Oh, God. I think wintertime. Really, I think I like the winter. We could skate, we could play hockey. We seem to spend more time together in the warm house, eh? And in the summertime, everybody was away working or gone somewhere, eh? In the wintertime, it was more togetherness, eh?
You mentioned that you would skate or play hockey. Did you have store-bought skates or did you make your own?
No, we had one pair Dad bought for 4 boys. I don't know which one of us they fit, but we all used them. Tuesday was my day to go skating, and quite often I'd get into trouble at school or at home, and okay, you don't skate tonight. So I forfeited my day of skating, eh? That's why I'm not an NHL hockey player. No, we had one pair of skates for 4 boys. And we had one bicycle for 4 boys too, eh, when we got around to bicycle time.
What about the hockey gear? Did you have your stick and your puck? Did you have those, or did you make those, or?
Well, Dad probably gave us one hockey stick at the beginning of the season, and then never lasted too long. We always made our own, made them out of whatever you get your hands on, eh? Puck, well, make them out of a round piece of wood too, get a log that thick, just cut pucks out of it. Or horse turds, eh? Frozen horse turds. Why, sure. What the hell? That was something to shoot around.
Let's turn to your family history for a little bit. Your grandparents. Did you know your grandparents?
My mother's mother, I knew her quite well. She lived at Ellen for a while when we were living there. But my dad's parents, I see them maybe, I don't think I saw more than 2 or 3 times in my life. He'd go visit. Dad would go down and visit his family every couple of years, or maybe every year, depends if there was a death in the family or something. Eh? But my grandparents on Dad's side, I don't think I'd seen them more than 2, 3 times at the most in my life. Eh? I don't remember them at all.
What were their names?
My granddad and my dad's side, his name was Philip Boechler, eh? And I'm damned if I know my grandmother's name. I don't know what that was. No, I won't even guess. Probably got a little card of her death and burial somewhere in the family junk box, but it's probably there. But
did they come over from Russia?
yes, they did. Yeah, and my parents were born in Russia too, eh?
Okay.
Yeah, my mother was 9 years old when they came over here, eh?
Okay.
And Dad was 10 years older than my mother, and they came about the same time, so Dad was probably a teenager, was middle into teens or something.
So your dad's parents, the Boechlers, they came from Russia. Did they go to the U.S.?
Yeah, they settled in the U.S. right away.
Okay, in the Karlsruhe area?
Yep, that's right.
And they remained down there once your dad moved up here?
Well, yeah. The rest of them all stayed there. My dad was the only one that came up here, eh? Yeah. And that was in 1926. Yeah, I was just a year old when...
Did your dad ever talk to you about what life was like in Russia?
No, Dad never did. Mom, okay. Mom, she had a great dislike for the Russians. She just didn't... I don't know whether it was economic or political or religious, but she just had no use for the Russian people. I don't know why. She was born there, but Dad never, I don't know whether he never ever talked about it. Mom did occasionally, eh? But Dad never ever said anything about the trip over. When Mom came over, they were quarantined on an island in the Gulf of the St. Lawrence for, I don't know how long, maybe a week or two. But there was measles or mumps, some disease on the ship, eh, and they were quarantined. They couldn't leave it, eh?
Do you know your mom's parents' names?
Their names? My grandmother on Mom's side, Catherine, I think. Her maiden name was Anton. Now that throws me. You see, my mother's family in Russia, granddad, who died first? Both of them were married twice, eh? They were widowed and now let me get this sorted out. Jesus. My granddad's first wife's name was Cooper. Her maiden name was Cooper. Now, that's not a Russian name. That's not a German name. How they come up with a name like Cooper, I'll never know. And my grandmother's name, her maiden name was Anton. That's also not a Russian name or even a German name. Eh? But that's according to that book I got there. I think a lot of that is listed in there, you know, like my mother had about 4 or 5, 6, 7 brothers and 2 sisters, eh? But some were from the first father and some were from the second mother, and I can't sort them out. I could never be bothered, eh? But I know there was, I wish, this one fellow, Mike Boehm, he was my cousin. I wish he was still living. He had a real interest in that. He just knew everything. He studied it and researched it. And in fact, that's his family, that Marcus Boehm there, that my mother's brother, one of his boys, but he's passed away. But he knew the history of the Boehms. Eh?
Did you know your grandpa's first name?
Ralph, I think. Yeah, I'm not even sure.
Okay.
I never knew him. I never knew any of my mother's. Just my mother's mother I knew, but none of the previous grandfathers or stepmothers or whatever they were. Eh? I never knew any of the others.
So
well, they never grew up around here, or they never lived around here, eh?
When your mother immigrated over here, her family, did they also settle in the Carl's rural area in North Dakota?
My mother's?
Yeah.
No, they settled right here at Allen, eh?
Okay.
Yeah. Right where the potash mine is. That's where their sod house was built, eh? There wasn't even trees for logs to build a log house. They had to build a sod house, eh? And that's what they lived in when they came here for quite a few years. Yeah, there was no railroad. There was nothing here yet. It was just bald prairie. They had more courage than I would have. I don't know if they knew it would be that rough when they got here, but they came anyway. Things weren't that good in Russia, so they packed up and left.
Did they have other family around the area, or was it just starting anew?
They were some of the first families that were here. There was nobody else here. Well, I suppose that was 1905 or 6 when they came. Maybe in 3 or 4 somebody came and. But there was some, I guess, that had been here earlier and settled somewhere in the district.
You said you got to know your grandmother a little bit. Can you tell me what type of a grandmother she was?
Oh. No, I can't really. By the time I really got to know her, she was about 95 years old already, eh? In fact, there's 5 generations living in that family, eh? Yeah, we got a picture of the 5 generations. My grandmother, my mother, my oldest brother, his son, and his son's daughter, eh? Yeah, there's 5 of them living. And Grandma, well, she was about 95 or damn near 100 then when she died, eh? And kind of a cantankerous old woman.
Let's see here. Your mom was 9 when she came over, and your dad was 19, or about.
Rough, yeah, yeah.
And then he moved to Canada in 1926.
Yeah, that's right.
Do you know how he met your mother?
Pardon?
Do you know how he met your mother?
Well, I think the families knew each other over in Russia yet, eh? But they didn't settle in the same place when they immigrated here. I think that the families did know each other over there, eh? They must have been come out of the same area, roughly, eh?
Did your dad ever talk to you about what life was like, or one of your brothers and sisters, what life was like in North Dakota?
Oh, my dad did, yeah. In North Dakota, yeah, but never he's mentioned anything about Russia, eh? But North Dakota, well, he remembers when, like I said, we had 1 pair of skates for 4 boys. Well, he had, what, 3 or 4 or 5 brothers. They had 1 pair of shoes for 4 boys, eh? And the only time anybody wore them was to go to church on Sunday, eh? Yeah, and he said he remembers when the first mobile tractor, eh? Like up until then they just had steam engines on skids that they pulled around to a hook to a thrash machine or something. They were pulled by oxen. And he said they heard that it was a self-propelled tractor moving through the area. He said he ran 3 miles through stubble fields barefoot to see that damn tractor move, eh? By itself, not being pulled by oxen, eh? Oh yeah, they had a pretty rough time too. Yeah, you see, in North Dakota, my dad didn't have much land, and he was raising a big family. Things were pretty darn tough. And I think that's why he was going to immigrate to Canada. He had a better outlook he could see a better future in Canada than he could on his quarter section of land that he had in North Dakota. Eh? No, Dad never talked too much about it previously. But one thing I found interesting, he was coming in, he was seeding one time. I think they had, what, 4 or 6 horses on a drill. And a storm was coming up, thunderstorm, rainstorm. So he'd get home, you can't, if it's muddy, you're not going to be seeding anyway. So he tried to get back home before the thunderstorm hit him. He drives into the yard with his drill and his horses, and he got hit by lightning. He said, I thought something hit me in the back of the head with a soft, he says it felt like a boxing mitt. You know, it was padded. That's what it felt like, but it knocked him out. And he fell off the drill in between the drill and the horses, eh? And if those horses would have moved at all, they'd have he'd have been sliced up by that damn drill, eh? But they just stood still. A couple of minutes, he come to, and he was all right, but it knocked him out for a bit, eh? Yeah. I thought that was quite a unique thing, eh? That he survived it to begin with, eh? And that the horses didn't panic and run like an animal usually would, eh? When a bolt of lightning that close, eh? But other than that, I don't know too much about my dad's. I know they had a rough time. What the hell, everybody did, eh? Everybody in the farming business especially, yeah.
So your dad, when he came, did he marry your mom while they were in Canada, or did they get married in North Dakota?
They were married in Canada. I think he came up and married her, and then they went back lived in the States, eh?
Do you know how long your mom and dad lived in the States before they came back up to Canada?
Well, oh yeah, just a minute.
Yeah.
I could get our old family Bible They were married in Allen on the 3rd of February 1913. And then they went back to the States. And they came back here in 26, so they were down there about 12, 13 years, eh? Yeah, this is all written in the German script, not even in German handwriting. It's difficult stuff to read, unless you know the language. I can read it because I know what it says. You don't read German, eh?
Not German script.
Yeah, well, this is all in German script, most of it.
I have had 2 years of German language, so
Yeah,
I
yeah.
can decipher some stuff, but German script is asking a lot.
I wrote a letter to my mother when I was in Germany in German script. It took me about a month to write it. You know, just because we did learn it in school, and I studied German 4 years in school. And I had learned how to write it, but, you know, you get away from it and you just...
Don't use it, you lose it?
It took me about, I would guess, 3 months to write that letter. And it's somewhere in the family heirlooms, eh? Yeah, Mom wouldn't throw that letter away. I can't even remember what the heck I wrote about, just telling her about the countryside, I guess.
Can you tell us a little bit about the book that you're holding and who it was and what it is?
Well, it's a book of the 4 Gospels, eh? There was 4 evangelists. There was Mark, Luke, John, and Matthew, eh? And each wrote the life of Christ in their own version of it, eh? And this is a book of each of the 4 Gospels, they call it. They're called in our church, eh? And, well, I guess Mom can quote this thing. Whoop. There's some interesting things in here. See if you can make sense of that. I can study it. I can figure out what it is eventually. But there's a lot of... But that's all in the German script, eh? That's... You know, we tried to get this book rebound and kind of fixed up a bit, but nobody would touch it. It's too bad. It's beat up too much, eh? Well, it's not beat up, it's just worn out. Oh, I know. Mom used to read us this stuff out of here, didn't we? We just hurry up, read it, that we can go and play, eh?
This looks like a list of people's dates of birth. Because they say born 31st of August, 1881.
1881. My dad was born in 1885. Mom was born, I think, about 1895. She was about roughly 9 years younger than my dad.
What was your mom's name?
Her name was Eva.
Eva was born in August 1st?
Yep,
1894.
August 94.
So it's a list of births.
Oh, yeah.
I'm guessing
Oh, I
it's
see.
siblings.
Yeah, she was born on August 1. That was the day my dad died in 63 on August 1. Oh, yeah. Who wrote this thing? Oh, that was Rudolph Beam, one of my uncles. Oh, jeepers it. Ooh. Yeah. It would take me forever and a day to try to sort that out.
That's a treasure, though, to have in the family.
Pardon?
That's a treasure to have.
Yes, it is. Yeah. Well, I got a good friend that just came over from Austria a few years ago. He can read that. He can. If I get stuck with it, I'll take it a long time and get him to translate it for me.
So your dad, when he was a young man, he came up to Allen. Did he just come up to marry your mom?
I think so.
Okay.
Yeah, I think so. I think this was.
Was it kind of like an arranged marriage between the families, you think? Or?
No, I don't think so. No. No, I don't think so. Wait, Dad had been up here for. What the heck? I heard not just recently why he came up here before me. He married Mum, and then he went back to the States after he married Mum. But he didn't come up here to stay. He came up on some business, or I forget what the heck. Somebody told me not long ago what it was all about.
But he had a reason to come up, and he
Yeah,
met
he
your
did.
mom,
Yeah,
and they got married from there. Okay.
I think the families knew each other over in Russia yet, but I don't know if Dad knew Eva or whatever, but they knew of each other.
So back in North Dakota, your two twin sisters are buried back there.
Yes, they are.
Do you know where they're buried at?
They're buried in Karlsruhe.
Okay.
Yeah. In fact, I heard the last time Dad was down there, they had just some wooden markers. I think my dad had some other grave markers made to put on there, on the graves.
What were their names?
Catherine and Margaret. Catherine was, they're listed here, born in, Catherine and Margaret. They were born on the 3rd of February, 1916. Yeah, 1916 on the 3rd of February. That was my mom and dad's wedding anniversary, if I remember right. They got married on 3rd of February, 1913. Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
Nice anniversary gift.
Pardon?
It was a nice anniversary gift.
Yes, it was. You bet. Yeah.
And then, does it say the dates that they died in the Bible?
Oh, it's in here somewhere. Oh. Catherine died in 1919 on the 31st of, what was that, August? Yeah. And Margaret died on, well, it says here October 31st. That was the day before, well, the same night I was born,
Okay.
Yeah, in 1925. Then Dad died in 73, and my older brother in 74, and Mom died in 74, and my youngest brother died in 81. Oh yeah, I can never remember those dates,
Dates can come and go.
That's right. Well, my mind is getting a little, I hear something today and tomorrow I'll never remember what I was told. I'm introduced to somebody and, now who was that guy? I know I met him and I can't remember who it is. That's the way it is.
So your dad and mom, when you think back to your childhood, did they have a good marriage? Did they work well together?
Yes, they were. Yep.
Who would you say was the stricter one of the two?
My dad must have had a hell of a lot of patience, to live with a handicapped wife in a house full of kids through some pretty darn tough times. I think my dad was a great man. Yeah, I got a copy of his Oh, a naturalization paper when he became a Canadian citizen. I don't know how. Well, would they have to be naturalized in the USA because he was an American citizen? I guess so. When they came over, would they automatically become American citizens? Would they have to go through the naturalization process?
Naturalization process.
Oh, yeah.
Go through as well.
But Mum was not included in that naturalization. She had to be naturalized on her own. I don't know why, because it says she's mentioned here, but not hereby, not included in this naturalization.
So just by being married to him, didn't make her a citizen, a Canadian citizen?
No, that didn't. Yeah, it says name of wife, Eva, not hereby naturalized. Because I know I saw her own naturalization certificate somewhere.
And what year did you say he was naturalized in?
Pardon?
What year was that?
In 1941. October 21 in 1941.
So 1941 was when he became a naturalized citizen.
Yeah.
So when you were born in Canada, were you automatically a citizen of Canada?
No, I was born in the States.
Oh yeah, so how did you?
My name is included on this naturalization.
Okay.
Yeah,
So
but until, I know when I was in the Army, there was a federal election, and in order to vote, I would have to forfeit my American citizenship, because I was dual citizen, born in the States but a naturalized Canadian. But the time I cast my first ballot, I forfeited my American citizenship, and to me it was more important to vote in Canada than to have a dual citizenship, so I wasn't concerned about losing my American.
because being born in America made you an American citizen, and then.
That's right, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I had no birth certificate, and I had one heck of a time to get a birth certificate, What did I need one for? Oh, I think when I wanted to get a passport, my last passport, I've had passports all my life. Never needed a birth certificate until, maybe 20 years ago when I needed a birth certificate. And there was no record of my birth in North Dakota. I think the courthouse had burned down where all the records were. It was lost. So I had to get a bunch of affidavits and sworn statements and copies of when I started school and where I went to school and why I went to school, and a heck of a bunch of affidavits to prove that I existed, or that I was born down there. That's what a baptism certificate I could get from the parish church, in Karlsruhe. But the birth certificate, I eventually got one. A certificate of late registration of birth, that's what it is. But it's not here with this. I think I got left stuck in my passport somewhere, and that's in the safety deposit box at the bank.
Huh, that's an interest. Never thought about that.
Yeah. But one thing, when Dad became naturalized in 1941, that was the Second World War was on then, and he was still an alien. And all the firearms and ammunition we had in the store, the RCMP come and confiscated it all because he was an alien. He wasn't a Canadian citizen. So any rifles we had, shotguns or shells, 22 shells, everything, RCMP confiscated everything. And then after the war, he got it all back, Or maybe even after he was naturalized. I was just a kid then. But he got it all back anyway. But the fact that, according to law, he was an alien and was not allowed to have any firearms. And they were for sale. It was in the hardware store, But they took everything. Yeah.
So you said your dad was a man that was very patient.
Oh yeah, he was. He was just I talk to a lot of guys that talk about how mean their dad was and all this and that. And I don't remember ever being punished by my dad or any of us kids getting a spanking or anything from him. Mom used to rap us on the head with she had a big wide wedding ring, bang, she'd tap you in the head with that thing, you felt it, but she never ever got a licking, a good spanking or anything. I never ever remember my dad raising a hand to any of us. Oh, he could give us a tongue lashing. That hurt more than I think a licking would, eh?
Can you tell me a little bit about your mom? What type of a mom was she?
Oh, she had a rough time with her hearing deficit, eh? With her deafness. But she was a very religious woman, eh? So was my dad. My dad wasn't as religious, but he was honest to a fault, eh? He wouldn't say shit if he had his mouth full of it, eh? He was that honest and that clean living, and God, if we ever used any real slang in his presence, we got a lecture, eh? You don't talk like that. You don't use language like that. And Mom was very religious, so she, like I said, she'd read this book from one end to the other until it wore out.
So did you guys attend the Catholic church in Allen?
Yes. Yeah, there was a big church there. Well, the whole community was a German Catholic community, eh? 95% of us, the residents were German Catholics, eh?
What was the other 5%?
Protestant. Well, there was a United Church there for a while, eh? Probably a United Church members, eh?
So when you were growing up, were your parents involved in politics at all?
No. Oh, my dad was interested in politics, but he took an interest in it, but he wasn't active in it, eh? Not as active as I was for a while. I was kind of active in politics, but, well, not too much so, but I was a member of a party, and I supported that party. But, no, my dad was he was interested in it, and he knew a lot of the politicians, eh? I think old John Diefenbaker was Prime Minister of Canada. He was a pretty, well, I shouldn't say a good friend, but a great acquaintance of my dad, and my dad knew a lot of those higher up politicians, eh? But, well, my dad got around. He got to know a lot of people, where my mother wasn't, she was isolated because on account of her deafness, eh?
Do you know how your mother became deaf?
No, I honestly don't know. I know Dad took her to every damn hearing clinic in the States. He took her to Rochester and wherever. And there was absolutely nothing anybody could do for her. Her ears were completely dead. You could amplify sound till hell wouldn't have it, but she'd never hear it, eh? But as kids, we'd come sneaking in maybe midnight or late at night. When the door opened, she knew it. She could feel the difference in air pressure. She could feel the stairs creaking. We're trying to take off her shoes and sneak up the stairs barefoot. She knew it. You just couldn't beat her, eh? That's a fact. Couldn't hear a thing, but knew everything. Good. As kids starting to smoke, eh? Come home from school, well, we always had a cigarette or something. Walk through the garden, eat an onion. Pick an onion, eat it. Walk into the house so she wouldn't smell the cigarette. She'd smell onion. Ah, you're smoking again, eh? That was her mind. She knew it. She was so darn, well, suspicious or smart or whatever you want to call it, but you couldn't get away with a thing on her. No, as handicapped as she was, you just couldn't beat her.
So were you close to her when you were growing up?
Pardon?
Were you close to her when you were growing up?
Not really. No, not as close as I was after Dad died. She was kind of feeble and kind of, well, handicapped, and I don't know how or why, but it seemed to me that I was more delegated to look after her. She lived in the senior citizens residence at Ellen, but any time there was a problem, she couldn't use a telephone, but one of her neighbors would phone me, and I'd have to go down there 3 or 4 times a day, sometimes 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning, and she leaned on me pretty damn heavy, and but that's all right. No, I don't. She needed help, and I was always there, I guess, so I was the one to help her.
How about your dad? Were you close to your dad when you were growing up?
Yes, I was. I was closer to my dad than to my mother.
What types of things would you do with your dad?
Oh, nothing really. Well, Dad was always interested in sports. I played ball as a teenager in high school and that. And Dad always went to the ball games. When we played hockey, he was at the hockey games. He was always more interested in. Well, I should than my mother. She like her handicap kept her out of so many things. That was the big thing. But she was quite patient about that too. She never complained. She never felt sorry for herself or anything, to my knowledge. She just got along. She and her religion, boy, her church was the answer to everything. It helped her, so.
Where did you guys live in the town of Allen?
Pardon?
Where did you guys live in Allen?
Where?
Growing up?
Well, we had a pretty fair house right in the village, That house is, well, first, when Dad first started in the business, there was living quarters above the store. We lived up there, and then I think that would be from about 1926 to about 36. I think he bought this house in the north end of the village. It was a pretty good house. There was lots of room there. We had a cow. We always had our own cow and some chickens, and well, that's the way it was in the small towns at that time. You did for yourself, Yeah.
So you had cows and chickens. Do you have any other animals living in
No.
town?
Cats and dogs.
Cats and dogs?
Well, no, my dad wasn't much for pets, but my mother, we always had a cat. I know as kids there was always a cat in the house. Where's my damn cat now? I'm so used to him, but.
Did you have any horses?
Pardon?
Do you have any horses?
No. Dad brought horses up from when he came up from Cars. It's a funny thing, from Cars, that's near mine now. That's not that far south, I could drive down there in 6 or 8 hours with a car, But it took Dad about 3 or 4 days on the train to come up with his livestock, Because they had to take the livestock out, water it and feed it, and then reload it again on the train. And it took him about 3 to 4 days to come up here. And Mom come up with the kids on the passenger train. It was pretty quick, but Dad had a rough time on the train. And then, when he got up here, then he sold his livestock then because he wasn't going to go farming. He decided to go into the store business instead.
So have you ever gotten back down to that area to see?
Oh yeah. The last few years my dad was alive, he wanted to go down there. About once a year I'd take him down. So one of us would, either me or my brothers. We'd drive down and he'd visit with us. He still had some brothers down there, and I don't think there's any of that family left anymore now. In fact, there were some I never knew. Like he had a couple of sisters that I don't even know where they lived, but I never ever met them. But his brothers were all in the area there. I knew them. But they're all dead and gone.
Okay. Now that we're back from our coffee break, let's talk about play for a little bit. What type of activities did you and your brothers and sisters do for fun?
Oh, we worked.
For fun?
That was, no, well, we just played games. We had played card games when we were all home. We played a lot of cards, and, well, we played a lot of ball, just sandlot ball, my sisters and my brothers. Well, there was 6 or 7 of us. That's enough for play against the neighbors' kids, And
How close was your nearest neighbor?
across the fence, right next door. I could throw stones into their house if I wanted to. Oh yeah, you know how close you are in the village to.
So how many people, how many kids would you guess were in town in the village when you were growing up?
Oh God. Well, just off the top of my head, maybe 150, 200.
Okay.
I don't know. There was about 500 or 600 in the school I was in, and a lot of them were from the farm area, You know, that came in on their buggies and their horses.
So what was the population of Allen at the time that you were growing up?
About 400 to 500 people, I would guess at, yeah. There was a time, it was up to 1,000, that just after the mines started, and a lot of people started moving in. And
you mentioned that when you were growing up you played cards.
yeah.
What type of card games did you play?
Oh, played whist. Later on we started playing bridge. My dad was a terrific bridge player. He was really a fanatic bridge player. And I don't know, what card games did kids play?
Did your dad play with you guys often when it came to
Not
cards?
really. No. Dad was always so darn busy when, no, he didn't.
You mentioned playing ball. When you played ball, did you have baseball gloves and bats and balls?
Well, yes, we did. Yeah, at that time, yeah, we had, yeah, we could afford the store-bought stuff. We didn't have to make our own,
Since your dad ran a hardware store, would baseball equipment be sold in the store? Or?
Not very much, not too much sporting goods. It was farmer-type hardware, it was working-type tools and harnesses for horses. That was a big thing at the time. And my dad he was a pretty good tinsmith too. He did a lot of tinsmithing for, a lot of the homes, the farm homes, had these old tin, what the heck do you call them? Tin chimney, there was a term for them, and I forget what it is, but he used to make a lot of them. Slipped my mind. But he was a good tinsmith. He was a good leather worker. We sold a lot of leather at that time, and for harnesses. The farmers would buy harness, or they need pieces of leather for repairing harness, and Dad could cut it. Pardon?
Where would he get the leather from?
Oh, from some tanneries, from Great West Saddlery, or some of the other dealers that he dealt with. It's a funny thing, the store building that we had, when Dad turned it over to me and my younger brother, when he was ready to quit, to get the title changed, I went to the land titles office to search the title on that, and when I found the title of it, there was a building restriction caveat on the back of the title, and I wanted to know what this building restriction caveat was all about. So the guy, he had to do some research on it too, because at that time that the land in that area was all owned by the Grand Trunk Railway. They got a lot of land grants from the government to build this rail line through the prairies at that time. And they got more land than they needed and they had pretty well a lot of control over what was going on in the farmland. And they had this building restriction caveat on this title for this piece of property. We were not allowed to build a blacksmith shop or a tannery, because a blacksmith shop is too noisy and a tannery stinks. So that was a building restriction caveat. And I thought, when I first saw this, I said, what the hell is this all about? So the guy explained it to me. And I says, well, really, that doesn't mean a heck of a lot today. He says, not a bit. I says, can I have that caveat taken off? He says, you could, it would take some legal work and some cost you money and everything else. He says, forget it, just leave it on there. What the heck? They know we're not going to build a blacksmith shop there, and we're not going to build a tannery. Nobody tans hides anymore, right? So the building restriction is still on that piece of property. Eh? Yeah, just a point of interest that amused me at the time. But get back to the railroad, though. See, they owned the railroad, the Grand Trunk, when they first came, the first railroad that was built across Canada. They owned an awful lot of land, and when they started to dispose of the land, they kept a lot of the mineral rights to a lot of that land instead of selling the mineral rights with the land. Eh? So when any mineral development, they had the mineral rights for a long time. Eh? So some of the my dad bought a lot of farmland eventually. Some of it he had the mineral rights, and some he didn't. And some of the oil companies wanted the mineral rights of some of his farmland, and then when the potash industry developed, the potash company wanted the mineral rights. But Dad wouldn't sell them the mineral rights. He says, if you're going to develop it, you pay me surface rights only, eh? He wasn't interested in getting royalties from any of the, what the heck, there was nothing under that land. Anyway, there's oil there, we know that, eh? But it's so down so far and costs too much to develop it, so they leave it alone, eh? But that's just a point of interest too, the mineral rights that the Grand Trunk Railway, between them and the Great West Life Insurance, they owned a lot of land around there. In fact, my dad bought some of the land from the Great West Life Insurance Company. But okay, that's enough about farming. No, my dad never farmed himself. When he bought some farmland for my brothers that wanted to start farming. In some of those years, land was pretty cheap. You could buy just a point of interest. When he bought the land from the Great West Life Insurance, there was 3/4 sections of land 10 miles south of Ellen, and it was good land, real good farmland. And Dad knew that the Great West owned it, and they were trying to get rid of some of that land because they were just losing money. It was producing, but the tenants, they were just skinning the company. The company wasn't getting any shares of the crop or anything. They had to pay taxes on it, had to dig in their own pockets to pay the taxes on it. So Dad wrote a letter to the Great West Life Insurance Company, and he says he included a check for $500. And he says, I've got another $5,000 if you want to sell me those 3/4 sections of land down south there, eh? You can let her back, send us the $5,000, and you can have those 3/4 sections of land. Holy frights, that was, they were just so anxious to get rid of it. That's what he paid them for 3/4 sections of some of the best farmland in the area. Eh? Well, that land is worth $100 or $100,000 a quarter section now, eh? But at that time you bought the 3/4 for $5,000, $5,500, eh? But you see that between the Great West and the Grand Trunk Railway, they owned so much property around there, eh? But that's all changed now there.
When you were growing up, you mentioned that you would hunt and fish a little bit.
Yeah.
Do you want to tell us a little bit about that, what that was like?
Oh, hunting. Oh, well, I used to. I never hunt big game. I never used a rifle. I just didn't like big rifles, see? I had enough training with them in the Army and the Air Force. In fact, my eyesight was never good enough that I could shoot accurately with a rifle. A shotgun was all right. I could shoot a flying bird, no problem, eh? But I did a lot of shotgun hunting, a lot of duck and goose hunting, eh? And that's where I hunted around Tramping Lake. For years I'd go there every fall for a couple of weeks and hunt geese. Fishing, I still do a lot of that now. And last 2 weeks ago I was up north, just when those damn fires started up there. That was where we were fishing. Eh? We got out of there just about 3 or 4 days before the fire started. Eh? Well, we'd have got out anyway. In fact, we'd have been evacuated if we were still up there. But
So when you were a kid, did you still hunt for ducks and geese, or?
when I was a kid, not really. Well, yeah. I used to sneak Dad's shotgun out once in a while, just when he wasn't home, or steal some of his ammunition and go. My dad liked hunting too. He did like it. He didn't have much time for it, but he liked it. But we used to sneak his firearms out and do a bit of hunting on the sly. Never had a license. At that time, it wasn't a hunting license wasn't that important a thing.
So what would you hunt for when you were a kid?
Ducks. Yeah, there was no geese in the area. There's lots of geese around Allen now because they've changed the whole flyways. Their nesting areas have all changed. There's more geese around here now than there was around Tramping Lake where I used to go to hunt. We got more geese right here locally now.
Did you ever do any trapping?
There was nothing to trap here. No. Well, there was a few years in the 50s. There was an awful lot of muskrats and mink around here because there was lots of water. The sloughs and every low piece of land was flooded, and muskrats started coming in here by the thousands. And then when there was muskrats in, then the mink came, and then there was some trapping done. But since then, the water has receded again, and these animals have disappeared. The only thing that's still here is the fox. They followed the muskrat and the minks, because they lived on them, Everything else is gone, but the fox is still here. So the farmers got to keep their chickens locked up where the fox will eat them. But no, the farmers don't even raise chickens anymore.
You mentioned that you would play games and such as ball and stuff. What about during school recess hour? What type of games did kids?
Oh, we played football, we played rugby, and we played baseball. We played a lot of baseball in high school, Yes, we did. Football, well, we called it rugby. It was just our own form of whatever it was. You just got to hold that ball. It didn't matter if you kicked it, threw it, or carried it. As long as you got it in the end zone, you scored. That's why half of the kids come in after recess. Their shirt was torn all to pieces, or that's the way it was. Yeah, it was pretty rough, some of those games, but nobody got hurt. Just. Yeah, baseball. In high school, I played quite a bit of baseball. I enjoyed it. I really did. I was never any good at it, but that didn't matter.
So your high school, did they have an actual baseball team that would travel around and play games?
Not really. Well, you played the other local villages, like the villages around Allen. Our high school team would play their high school team over in the next village. But no real league playing. No. All just bush league stuff, just fun type things. Same thing it was in hockey when we were growing up. I played hockey too with the local team, just played the other teams in the other villages and in the other towns.
When you were growing up, did anyone in your family play a musical instrument?
My oldest brother was pretty good on the guitar and the organ. We had one of those old pedal organs, he was pretty good at playing that. And my sister was too, my oldest sister. But my youngest brother, he decided one time he was going to learn to play the fiddle, or play the violin. I don't know, Dad got one for him somewhere, and the noise around the house, it was just pathetic. He didn't last long. We wouldn't let him last long at that sawing away at that damn screechy thing. He got rid of that fiddle pretty quick. No, there was not really musical in our family, not.
Let's look at school for a little bit. You mentioned that you attended a rather large school. Is the only school that you attended
Pardon?
Is Allen's school the only school that you actually attended?
I finished high school up in the North Battleford in the seminary. It was St. Thomas College.
Okay.
I finished high school up there, yeah. My youngest brother wanted to go. It was a residential school, and my dad didn't think that Andrew, he was too young to be up there alone, so he thought, Ray, you go with him. You can finish your high school up there in that college. So I did. It was a college or a high school operated by the Catholic priests, and that's where they trained their priests, That's what it was, a seminary where you learned to be a priest,
Were you intending to learn to be a priest?
No, I wasn't. I had no intention to that at all. The only reason I went was because Dad thought I should go with Andrew, because, well, whatever, anyway, I had no intention to.
Did Andrew become a priest?
No, he didn't either. He was not doing so well in the school at home. He had too many other interests,
So tell me a little bit about the school in Allen. What type of school was it? How many
It was
classes?
a public school, but all our teachers were nuns, Usually a separate school had all nuns teach, but this was a public school, and being a 95% Catholic community, we just had Catholic nuns as teachers, So all my life in school, I had either the nuns at Allen or the priests up at the college, By religious people, they were all my teachers, so.
Did you like going to school?
Yes, I did. Yep. It's a strange thing. I liked going to school, I liked studying, I liked the discipline at school. And when I was in the Army and the Air Force, I liked the military discipline. I liked discipline. I liked somebody to tell me what to do. I didn't have to make decisions, I was told what to do, and that's easy to do, so I do it. Stayed out of trouble that way. No, that's right. I enjoyed military discipline. I really did.
When you were growing up, was education important to your parents?
To my dad, it really was. Yeah, it was important. My dad wanted me to go to university, and I joined the Army when I finished high school. Oh, Dad was upset something fierce because he thought I was going to go on to university. And he wanted me to get a further education. But, oh, hell no. My buddies were all in the forces, and you just didn't feel right. So I joined the Army. Come out of the Army, and I tried farming for a year or two. That wasn't what I didn't like it. I'm not a farmer. So I joined the Air Force and fooled around there for a few years. Enjoyed life. Learned how to drink. I had a drinking problem for quite a few years. I really did. You want to know about my personal life? I went into a rehabilitation center 25 years ago. Haven't had a drink since. But 20 years before that, I was pretty near drunk all the time. Every day, anyway, practically. Still doing my work. I was still running my business, but too heavy on the booze.
Was that a common thing back then?
There was quite a bit of it, but I think I was just a little bit over the average. Yeah, it was a serious problem with me. I had serious medical problems. I had about 1/5 of my liver was still functioning when I quit drinking. They gave me about 5 months to live. That was about it, if I had kept on drinking. In fact, I did drink for another couple of months, but I shut her down and went into a rehab center, and they screwed my head on right, so I'm still here. And that's over 25 years ago now,
Did anybody else in your family have similar problems, or was it just
Well,
that you...
they're all pretty good boozers, but none to the extent that I was, Yep.
Okay.
But that's right, all my brothers were They knew how to handle liquor, eh? In fact, they knew better how to handle it than I did. That's part of my life. But it's part of my life. It's the way it is.
When you think about the school that you attended in Allen, you said that it was taught by nuns, but was the population of the school pretty equal with boys and girls? Or were they
But yeah, about half boys, half girls. About even the way it is today, eh? I would think, eh?
Okay. And how would teachers discipline, or the nuns discipline children when they stepped out of line?
Well, in my opinion, they involved too much religion in everything, eh? You know, if they were disciplining you, it was for religious reasons. It was, it was more religious than social, eh? Any problems we had, it was, or that's what they made out of it, eh? I can't knock them for it, though. That's what they were trained to do. And
the nuns that were there, would they be there for extended periods of time? Like, would you see the same nuns every year, or would they be different nuns?
Well, they'd be the same order of nuns, but they would change the staff, you know, like, well, what did we have? When I started school, there was about five or six maybe in teaching staff, eh? Like there was grades 1, 2, and 3 in one room, 3, 4, and 5, or 4, 5, and 6 in another. I think there was probably 4 or 5, but they would change them maybe every 2 or 3 years. You'd get a different teacher in, eh? Or a different teacher for the same grade, see? No, I can't complain about that. They were good teachers. They were well-educated people. They were well-trained. They did their job.
Was it common back then for students to go off to high school like you did? I mean...
Not really. No, not too many of them. No, it wasn't common.
How old were you when you left to go to high school?
Pardon?
How old were you when you went to high school?
Oh, I was about 16 maybe when my last year or so was 16, 17. I think I wasn't 18 yet when I finished, so. It was a good place to finish high school because you concentrated on studies. Like I said, it was a residential school operated by an order of priests, and you were under discipline. You know, they kept you busy, and you had lots of freedom. You know, you're involved in a lot of other things than studies, but all within reason, all within moral reasons. You know, it was a good living. You know.
Was this something your dad had to pay for?
Oh yeah, we had. It wasn't. I don't know what the heck. Maybe $300 or $400 a year or something. It was dirt cheap anyway. Yeah, that was. See, at home in the high school, it was free. You went to school. Your taxes paid all that.
Did Allen have a high school back then?
Yeah. Yes, we did have a high school. Okay. Yep. Taught by nuns. They were good teachers. They were.
Since you lived in town, when you were going to school in Allen, did you go home for lunches, or did you have your lunches?
No, we always went home for lunch. Yeah, we only lived 2 or 3 blocks from the school. Well, how big is a village, eh?
Did you always kind of envy the children that got to stay at school and eat lunch, or did you like going home?
No, we'd sooner go home. Yeah, like I said, especially in the 30s when things were tough, some of the kids, they didn't go home because there was nothing to eat at home, eh? They were told, don't bother coming home at noon because there's nothing here, eh? No, and we didn't want to be in that class. I didn't want to take my lunch to school anyway, even if there would have been. You know, what the hell, I'd sooner go home.
You know, at school, you mentioned that there were a lot of farm kids that would come in to attend school in Allen. Was there any ever confrontation between town kids and farm kids, or were they all pretty much the same?
Oh, pretty well the same. But there was always, no, it was pretty. If you didn't grow up on a farm, but you were so involved in the farming community, you know, you're either Your parents were connected with farming one way or another. You were either a grain buyer or a merchant selling to the farmers, or a fuel dealer selling fuel to the, you were so involved in the farming community that there was no competition, there was no hard feelings or anything.
How about the holidays? How did school celebrate holidays like Christmas and Valentine's Days? What type of things would the school do?
Oh, what the heck? We had probably a party at school and for a half a day or something. What the heck? Bring some cookies from home and make some lemonade or something and played a couple of games in school. That was a Valentine's party or a Halloween party or whatever. Eh? Yeah, it was just pretty simple and pretty basic. Eh?
The school that you were attending, since it was in town, I'm guessing wasn't a one-room schoolhouse, and you had less kids in one room. What was a typical class like class size?
Sorry, I lost you right at the beginning there.
I'm guessing that since Allen was a bigger town, you had more than a one-room schoolhouse.
Yeah, yes, we did.
So how many grades were in a class?
About 3 grades in one classroom. Eh?
Okay.
Yeah, that's usually the teachers had 2 or 3 grades to teach. Eh? Okay. Well, in high school, even in high school, what the heck? 10, 11, and 12 grades, 10, 11, and 12 in one room, and one teacher taught them all.
So, let's talk about the town of Allen for a little bit. What was in the town when you were growing up?
What was in the town?
Yeah.
Well, I tell you what, it was a pretty active little town. We had 4 or 5 grocery stores, which was on most communities, if they had one good store, they were doing, but there was good competition and there was a lot of trade. Well, now what was... We had 6 grain elevators, which was more than most villages had. Eh? Most of them had 1 or 2 maybe. Eh? But that was 6 families. The grain buyer, he had a family that created more people in the town. Eh? We had implement dealers. Every village had 2 or 3 implement dealers, which you don't see anymore. The small towns don't have any car dealers or implement dealers anymore. Eh? They're all in the bigger cities. That's why our store in Allen went. Well, you just can't compete with the bigger communities, eh? It was a good little town. We had electricity in the village where none of those other villages had electricity, because we had a guy with a local power plant, eh? He had 2 or 3 big generators and big stationary engines. At night, in the evening, start those engines, we had power, electricity. We had electric lights at night, eh? Only at night. Daytime, no, we didn't need electricity, eh? Until about 1941-42, when the Saskatchewan Power Corporation started expanding, electrifying these smaller towns, eh? But up until then, we just had our own power plant, and it was effective, We had good power. Monday mornings, wash day, the power was on because a lot of people had electric wash machines, eh? So that's the way it was. If there was any major community event at night, a dance late at night, the power was kept on till 1 or 2 o'clock in the morning instead of shutting it down at 11 or 12 at night, eh? Well, we were well off. We thought we were, but we were in comparison to some of the other communities. It was a good community. It really was.
What other types of businesses were in town?
Pardon?
What other types of businesses were in town?
Well, like I said, we had about 4 or 5 grocery stores. We had 3 or 4 garages. We had 3 or 4, at least 3 implement dealers, about 3 or 4 car dealers, mostly dealing in small farm trucks, eh? That's what was bought and sold more than cars, eh? But they were dealers, and they were there. They were available.
Do you have restaurants in town?
Oh, yeah, there was always 2 or 3 restaurants, eh? He had a Chinese restaurant, old Tom Cito, Bill Londorf. Oh yeah, we always had 3 restaurants in town. Eh?
How about a movie theater?
Not about once a week, some guy would come in and we had picture shows. Eh? I remember the old silent movies. There was no soundtrack yet. I remember the first time we got, what the heck, it cost us 15 cents, I think, to go to a movie, to go to a talkie movie. There was sound, eh? Oh, that was quite classy, you know. It was quite a... Well, it was like everything else changing, you know, getting better as, like I say, when we tell our kids what life was like at that time, they don't want to believe that it was that crude. And, well, I shouldn't say crude, but it was that without so many things, eh? Like a vacuum cleaner. I remember the first time I saw a vacuum cleaner. God, that was something. Refrigerator. Well, refrigerators until 1942 when the Power Corporation electrified the towns, then people had refrigerators. But up until then, we just had ice boxes, eh? You get your block of ice well, everybody usually made their own ice in the wintertime. In the summertime, you chopped up a piece, put it in the ice box, and you had your refrigeration. Or you used, like for your milk and cream and butter, hang it down the well, eh? That's right, it was always cooler down there. That's what life was all about. No problems at all. Yeah.
The roads in the town, can you describe what they used to look like? What
Pardon?
type of roads?
The which?
The roads?
The roads.
Yeah, what were those like?
Just gravel, dirt roads, eh? In fact, a lot of towns, if there was no gravel, when it was rainy or muddy, there was darn few cars on the roads at that time, eh? In fact, in the wintertime, there was no cars driven at all. It was always. I remember when the first car my dad had, in the wintertime, we never drove anywhere. If he decided he had to go to Saskatoon on business or something, at night he would take the battery out of the car, put it in the house, warm it up, that the car would start in the morning because there was no block heaters, there was no electricity to plug it in to begin with. Eh? But we take the battery out the night before that it was warm, and then in the morning your battery had more life and the car would start. Eh? That was just normal procedures. Eh? Well, it was like the farmers coming to town with their sleigh and their horses. Well, some guys had 8, 10, 12 miles to come by a team on a cold day. If they didn't have one of these foot warmers in there, they would heat a bunch of rocks in the oven the night before, then put them in the sleigh in the morning under your feet. By the time you got to town, your rocks were still warm and your feet weren't frozen. That's right, that's what used to be.
Will you tell me a little bit, you had mentioned that the community would have a lot of community events or dances. Will you tell me a little bit about those?
Well, I don't know. There was always a dance or two for one reason or another. In fact, a lot of the communities had a dance every Saturday night. Eh? I never danced. I never did go to dances when I was a kid. I don't know why. I think I'd sooner be out hunting rabbits or something at night. That's what I did. Never did learn to dance. No regrets.
Were there ever any parades or celebrations like that?
Well, we had a sports day. Every community had a sports day one day of the year, probably in the middle of the summer. Yeah, sometimes there was a parade involved, but there was always lots of ball teams. All the ball teams from all the various towns around would come and have a big ball tournament and kids races and various things keep everybody happy and noisy. And
so did you participate in those races?
Oh, I guess I did when I was a kid. Yeah.
Were you good at them?
No, I was never good at anything except drinking. No, No, I was active in everything. I played ball, I played hockey, but was never good at them, but I enjoyed them.
Tell me a little bit about the chores that you were responsible for. I'm guessing they were different than what I've heard from most kids, since most people I interview were farm kids.
Well, like I said, when we lived in the north end of the village, we always had a cow and we had chickens. In fact, we even had a couple of pigs one year out the back, and there's a bunch of empty lots out the back. I remember one year, Mom and Dad were going down to the States to visit Dad's family, his brothers, and there was just my youngest brother and I were home alone. I don't know where the rest of the boys were. Anyway, it was my job to look after the cow and do the outside chores. Look after the garden, hoe the weeds, or whatever. And Andrew's job was to do the cooking in the house. And he was my youngest brother. The only thing he could cook was porridge. And we ate porridge 3 times a day for 3 bloody weeks. I didn't want to see any more porridge till hell froze over. That's the only thing he knew how to cook. Porridge. Ugh.
So do you still dislike porridge to this day?
No, I don't. We don't have it very often, but I eat it now. But at that time, you couldn't have porridge 3 times a day. That's when I forgot my first baseball mitt. Dad bought me one when he was down in the States because he knew that I'd be pretty busy looking after the cow and the chickens and the garden and everything else. So he bought me a mitt. I don't imagine he paid more than $2 or $3 for it. Just some cheap thing, but it was my first baseball mitt. Yeah.
What about, you mentioned you had pigs, and did you make your own sausage?
Oh, my dad was a terrific sausage maker. He was. He was a good butcher, not commercially, but he could make some of the best sausages in the community. A lot of people come to him for advice. Well, Matt, I butchered a couple of pigs. How would you make these sausages? And Dad would tell him. I remember one day, somebody asked him, he says, well, Matt, how much pepper do you put in that? Well, they usually had a big tub full of meat or ground up or something. Oh, Dad said a soup bowl full. And the guy says, well, a soup bowl, the soup bowls are different sizes. Well, whatever size you got, put a soup bowl full of pepper in it. And we always had good sausages.
So did he tell me how he made sausage?
Pardon?
How did he make sausage?
Well, you grind up the meat, you put the spices in it, and you had a little sausage machine. And my dad cleaned his own casings, He would clean the casings when we butchered up a pig or something, That was always a nasty job, a dirty job, and a touchy job. But my dad he had to do it himself. He didn't want anybody else to do it. They couldn't do it good enough for me. But he made, well, like I said, he'd spice them and mix them, and while he was doing it, every once in a while he'd take a sample and fry it up quickly in a pan to see if it was spiced enough or something. But he was a good sausage maker. He used to make pork sausages, blood sausage, head cheese, liver sausage, everything that you could buy in a store.
So would he smoke the sausage, or?
He could. We always had a smokehouse made out of one damn thing or another. It wasn't a fancy smokehouse, but he'd smoke his own hams and sausages if he wanted. He didn't smoke everything. Freeze a lot of it,
What was a smokehouse like? How would you smoke something back then?
Smoke it?
Yeah.
Well, I tell you what we had at home. Out of the hardware store, when we got glass, big cases of glass, they were all in big wooden boxes, flat, but fair sized. Keep a few of those boxes, take them apart, and you got sides for a smokehouse, Make a smokehouse out of those boxes. Then what you use for the smoke was sawdust, You go down to the wood dealer that sold cordwood. He'd give you a couple of sacks full of sawdust. Go home and use that, make smoke, build a fire in there, and create your own smoke. And that's how you smoked your meats,
Was it smoked through and through, so it was ready to eat, or was it smoked so it just had flavor?
No, it would cure it. Smoked enough to cure a lot of it, and for flavor, a lot of it too. My dad never smoked it too much. A lot of farmers or a lot of people smoked. Oh, to me, it smoked it too much, and it tasted too damn smoky. But it was mostly for it would last, keep better. It would cure it.
Okay.
Yeah, it would add a little flavor to it, but
Would your mom can any of that meat after it was?
not. Not. No, I don't think she ever canned any sausages or. She used to can chicken. If we like you had a bunch of chickens left over after the summer, well, you didn't want to keep them over the winter. Butcher them all, and she would can some of them. Put them in big jars and cook them and put them in jars. So you had chicken all winter.
So you didn't keep chickens over the winter?
No, no. Well, the farmers did, because they all had a proper hen house. We had nothing but the backyard and.
So then in the spring, would you get like little?
Well, you'd buy little chicks, get new chicks and raise them, and yeah.
Okay.
Like I said, as long as the foxes are there, you got to keep your chickens locked up because the foxes come in and get them. Well, that still goes on in the farms. If the farmers that have chickens.
Did your mom have a large garden in?
Oh yeah, we always had a large garden. Well, our backyard was so darn big and was always in. That was one dad's theories too. Lots of garden, lots of hoeing to do, lots of work, keep the boys out of trouble. We hoe potatoes. Well, Dad, we're finished hoeing them. Start over. Those weeds are growing again. We hoed potatoes. But that was his theory. Keep them busy. Yep.
Keep them busy and out of mischief?
That's right, and out of mischief. That's exactly true.
What type of mischief did you get into when you were kids?
Nothing. Well, what the heck. No, I don't really. Oh, I suppose once in a while we'd swipe a bottle of beer on somebody or something, or get some cigarettes and smoke and do things that kids shouldn't be doing,
You mentioned smoking and alcohol. Back then, were cigarettes, now you can just go purchase a pack of cigarettes, but did you have to roll your own cigarettes back
Well, we
then,
didn't have to, but it was always cheaper to roll your own. You could buy a package of tobacco for a nickel, and you got enough papers to use up that package of tobacco, That was, you'd get about 20 cigarettes out of a package, if you rolled your own. And if you bought ready-made, tailor-mades we called them, they were a penny a cigarette. For 10 cents, you'd get a package of 10. 25 cents, or if you had 2 bits, you bought a big package, and that was real class. 25 cigarettes for 25 cents. Or you could even buy nickel packages, five cigarettes for a nickel, But we always smoked or rolled our own,
How old did you have to be to buy cigarettes when you were growing up?
Didn't matter. Anybody that was old enough to carry the money could buy cigarettes. You'd always say, well, they're for Dad or they're for somebody else. Nobody ever questioned you.
What about alcohol? Was it homemade alcohol or was it store-bought?
No, it was homemade alcohol. I think I was about the last guy around Ellen that made any.
What type of alcohol did your family make? What type of alcohol did your family make?
Our family didn't make it. I made it.
Oh.
No, and I wasn't a kid then anymore.
Okay.
No, just whiskey, home brew, good homemade whiskey, Yeah, well, I had another buddy in town, and him and I had a still. We made our own. It's not that we couldn't afford to buy the stuff. It was just a matter of a challenge, Make your own. See if you couldn't beat the law. But if you ever got caught, you'd still be in jail.
So growing up in town, did you have to help your mom with some of the house chores, like cleaning the house and doing laundry and
No,
like
not
that?
as boys. The girls always did,
Okay.
Yeah. No, as boys, we were never... That wasn't part of our job. No, it was... The girls did the housework, They did the washing and the ironing and the house cleaning, and the boys, we did the outside work. We looked after the cow and the chickens or hoed the garden or went down to the store and helped Dad. Always in the warehouse, there's always something to unpack and to clean up. Oh yeah, there was always. Even when I was in the store myself and my kids were growing up, after school they'd come down to the store and help out, clean out the warehouse, stuff to burn, rubbish to burn. And
can you tell me a little bit about the house that you grew up in?
the house I grew up in, well, just was a good old solid house, 2-story house. Just a space heater. There was no furnace. There was no basement. There was just a cellar hole there. That's where we kept potatoes and a coal bin. It was a good old solid house. But, well, like I said, there was, in the living room there was a space heater. In the kitchen there was always the kitchen range. That always kept the kitchen warm. But that was for heating the house in the wintertime. It was, and upstairs, where our bedrooms were, there was no stove up there, but the chimney always went through the upper floor, and the heat from the chimney would never kept it warm, but it kept it from freezing. In fact, not even always from freezing, because always had a bowl of holy water there. That was frozen in the morning usually, That was nothing though. You had good warm. That was one thing that I really enjoyed when I come out back from the Air Force and the Army, was the old feather quilt that we had at home, Mom always made quilts, with the old down from the ducks we had that, or goose down or whatever. Good, warm, light quilts, You wouldn't freeze under them if you tried. And no weight to them, And I think of some of those old damned Army blankets. They weighed a ton, rougher than sandpaper, but that's what you had, Then I get home under that quilt. Oh, that was the nicest part of coming home. Sleep in my own bed and with that warm quilt,
How many rooms were there in the house?
Pardon?
How many rooms were there in the house?
Well, upstairs there was one great big room, and there was 3 beds for 5 boys. My oldest brother slept alone, and the other 2 beds were 2 boys in the bed, And downstairs there was 2 bedrooms, one for Mom and Dad and one for my sisters, But that's today. Well, every house has 4 or 5 bedrooms, 4 or 5 bathrooms. We had the old outhouse. There was no bathroom in the house.
How far from the house was the outhouse?
Oh, I don't know, maybe from here across the street. Okay. You didn't dilly-dally too long in the wintertime. You run out there and you did your business and you run back.
What did you use for toilet paper?
Old T. Eaton's catalog or any pieces of paper, newspapers, whatever was available. Oh, yeah, there was no money spent on toilet paper. Oh, yes, that's the way it was in those days. We didn't know any better. We didn't complain about it.
Will you tell me about how often you would take a bath?
Well, as kids, I remember once a week. Well, what the hell did we have? A great big galvanized tub. Mom would fill that full of hot water, and one after the other, in and out, and give a good scrubbing, and next one in. That was our weekly bath,
What day of the week was it on?
Pardon?
What day of the week?
Saturday, usually. Yep, it cleaned up for Sunday. Yes, that's about the way it was.
What would you use for soap?
Well, my mother used to make her own soap, but I don't think she made too much of it. Oh, I don't know, you buy some kind of soap. But I know a lot of people that just all they had was homemade soap. Pretty strong stuff, some of that.
Who in your family usually prepared the meals?
Pardon?
Who in the family prepared the meals?
Mom always did. Yeah, well, yes, as long as we were all at home, Mom did all the cooking,
What was a typical breakfast?
Porridge. Yeah, usually porridge or cold cereals. Just didn't often have bacon and eggs. In fact, very seldom we didn't have eggs for breakfast. I have eggs every morning, damn near, for breakfast here, eh? But at home, no, we didn't. It's not that they weren't there, but they weren't part of our breakfast. Porridge and homemade bread, toast. Always homemade bread. Mom always baked. We never had.
Did you call your noon meal lunch, or was it dinner?
It was dinner. And evening dinner was supper, eh?
Okay.
Yeah, it was always dinner. Breakfast, dinner, and supper, eh?
And what would you typically have for dinner?
Oh, usually, Mom always had a pot of soup on, homemade soup, and sandwiches of some kind, or some cold meat, and either some home-cured ham or some sausages or something that... My mom was a good cook. She really good. She was a good cook.
What you mentioned homemade soup. What type of soups would she make?
Oh, chicken soup, beef soup, milk soup. That's about it, I guess.
Okay. And what about supper? What was a typical supper?
Oh. There was usually a roast of some kind. Either pork roast, beef roast, or roasted chicken or something, eh? We always ate well. We always had good meals, eh?
So you had mentioned before that you served, you were drafted for the war, and then you had finished school and you actually volunteered.
Yeah,
right?
that's right.
Can you tell us a little bit about what the war was like for you, where you went and your training?
Oh, it was like I said, I enjoyed military discipline. And that's what it was all about, the training, was mostly discipline, eh? And work. They kept you in good physical shape, eh? Like advanced training in the Army. I know every Thursday we had to walk 25 miles, eh? We would go on a route march, walk out about 12 miles, cook your dinner outside somewhere, whatever you had. They gave you a raw potato and a piece of hamburger or something. You made yourself a fire and you cooked it, then you walked back. But you were carrying all your equipment, your rifle, your helmet, your change-off carrying light machine guns. But that was hard work, walk 25 miles in those days, eh? But I tell you, we were tough. You know, we'd go dancing yet at night when you get home, eh? If you didn't have too many blisters on your feet, eh? That was always a problem. You got blisters, eh? But we were hard, really. And a lot of mornings, geez, 5 o'clock they come in. Usually you didn't have to get up that early, but get out, you had to run 5 miles before breakfast. And that was hard. Get up out of a warm bed, run 5 miles, then come back and eat breakfast. Oh, geez. That was just physically to keep you in physical shape, eh? And as these route marches in the Army was during the week was the same thing, just to keep you in physical good shape. Teach you discipline, teach you how to look after yourself. And I enjoyed it, though. I really did enjoy military discipline. A lot of guys that swear like hell at it, you know. They're always bitching about the officers giving you hell about one thing or another. Yeah, what the heck, that's their job. I'll do mine, they do theirs. I had no problem.
What year is it that you went in?
Pardon?
What year did you go in?
1944, late in 44, just then the war quit in Europe in 45, eh? Then I went to the Air Force in 1951.
Were you the only one out of your brothers that was?
No, Ralph, my older brother, was in the Army too. Eh? He was up in Labrador most of the time. Eh? He was a truck driver. He was in the Service Corps. Eh?
How did your family react to the news that you were going off to war?
Well, it was like everybody else. It was just normal procedure. Eh? Yeah.
And you never saw any action?
No, I didn't. No.